Okay. Hey, so good morning and thank you for joining us today. My name is Phil Balliet and I am the founder of the Guided Growth Syndicate. And why try to shout your message to your ideal client when you can whisper it in their ear? So, guys, I'm really excited to be here today. I'm joined by the esteemed Dr. John Oda and Dr. William Horton, and we're going to talk about something called Neurolinguistic Programming, or NLP for short. You won't want to miss this because we're going to take your sales game to the next level. The right words at the right time is everything. And the good doctors are going to explain exactly how this works and give us some actionable tips that we can start using today. So, gentlemen, welcome, and please tell me a little bit about yourselves.
Okay, hey, I was chosen to go first. It's always my pleasure. I'm Dr. Will Horton. I'm a little background clinical psychologist, master addiction counselor, but I've been in the hypnosis and the NLP world since the early 1980s.
Wow.
And the the thing I like about it, it's how you think, not why. You know, I mean, we'll spend a lot of time in the business world, and John's the expert in this, Dr. John, but it's like crafting your message, right?
Mhm.
But then you don't really spend enough time like how are you going to deliver the message and at what time and what how you set it up, because it's all subconscious. 90% of your life is lived subconsciously, not consciously, right? It's the things you do without thinking about it. You get in the car, you just drive, right? If you ever rented a car that you're not used to, I rented a car uh, this summer, and it was the first pure hybrid I'd ever driven. Not a hybrid, it was an electric car. So I didn't think the car was running. I kept turning it off and on because I didn't hear anything. I'm used to
Yeah.
driving this Ram 1500 with the super motor in it, and it's like, oh wait, it's on, right? But that
Right.
was just I was on subconscious mode. Just like one time, I got used to my gear shift level being this way. Then I bought this new car, and I get in the car and I keep turning up the radio, trying to put it in drive, right? And it was like I had to drop back. So that's the stuff we don't think about,
Mhm.
but we can use that to our advantage in business, marketing, and motivation, right? And so and I will close with, after working in, and I still love the addiction world, helping people overcome alcohol, drugs, and food. I consider that an addiction. But if the same things if you can motivate someone to give up a lifelong habit, those same structures can be used in a different way, right? And so
Yeah.
that's what and I love working with business people because they're motivated and they're fun to work with, and uh, and they usually take to the technology very well. So that's kind of a little bit about an NLP, and I've been doing it forever. And I will say I keep learning more all the time, and it's the stuff we know now with science is fascinating. So that's
Awesome.
it for me, and I'll turn it over to my buddy.
All right, thank you. I think there's two people you don't go behind. You don't go behind Joseph McClendon, Tony Robbins, and now Dr. Will. So anyway, I learned my lesson. So my name is Dr. John Oda. I got a little bit background. I'm from Indiana, born and raised in Indiana. That's where I met Dr. Will. We're from the same state. Of course, now I live in Florida. I live in California. I've been doing mental health field for the last 36 years. So I started off working with adolescent teens. Met Dr. Will and started doing NLP and started working with them and started getting unbelievable results from it. Then I started, going of course in the business realm and of course I talk more about that, and some of these questions that we have. But I've been doing mental health for 36 years, business for the last 27 years. I'm author of two books. I wrote a parenting book, a communication book, and an inspirational book. Dr. H was a little bit humble. He's authored about 9 to 10 books, all around subconscious, NLP, and everything else. He was pretty much nice today. But anyway, but that's who I am. And of course, with these questions, we'll get more involved with what's actually taking place. All right, Phil, man, let's rock and roll, baby. Let's do it.
Awesome. Yeah, this is really cool. So, one thing I wanted to ask you, I've talked to different people about this, and it seems like there's different kinds of NLP floating around out there. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and tell me some of the differences? Because NLP, it sounds more like a catch-all. Can you kind of explain what you guys do and why that's different from maybe other versions of NLP?
You want me to hit this first, Doc?
Yeah, you can hit it first.
I hit it first. So I've been doing NLP since the early 90s, right? When I first started, I took a couple of people courses. I went to a good friend of mine, Joseph McClendon, all those guys, Anthony Robbins, all those guys' courses. And they were great. but they just taught me, do this, do this, do this. They didn't give me why I was doing this. So then I started taking Dr. Will, right? And his NLP was different because it was more traditional. So Dr. Will, he said that he started in the 80s, like about 40 years ago. He started with like Bandler and Grimler and Dose, all of the pioneers who started it. So his NLP is traditional. So what it happens is it teaches you like magic words, hypnotic writing. It teaches you language patterns. The other ones, depends on how they got it, is watered down. So it's almost like when you get trained by the root, now you are you're not even the branch, you're like the leaf. Now what you get taught is watered down. The difference is Dr. H teach more of the traditional way of how to do NLP. Now, when people tell me, "Oh, John, I do NLP," I'm like, "Okay, so I know this stuff." Well, what did you take? Basics. I said, "You don't know this stuff." I said, "Do you know what magic words is or language patterns?" No. Then you don't know this stuff. So for me, that is the biggest differences. If you're taught traditionally or the watered down method, and then people think it's NLP. That's only my opinion.
Can you elaborate a little bit when you say magic words? That just struck me. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Doc, that's
okay.
what you, baby.
This is well, and like John said, one thing, since NLP reminds me of martial arts, right? There's a big difference if you studied in Japan with the old guys or the ones that are 5 generations removed. The soldiers that went after World War II. Not that they're not great, but they learned it, they Americanized it, and then they brought it back here. And so that's that disconnect. And it's the things that are left out. I can use a martial arts analogy. Trust me, this will make sense. In the Japanese style, the old style, which very few people teach, there's all these pressure points that are involved. It's why a 120-pound Japanese guy could beat the crap out of a guy Jansai Marine, in Okinawa. That's impressive. Well, it's not that they didn't teach the pressure points. There was language gaps and everything else. So that information was deleted. You learned what you were doing, but you didn't learn why you were doing it. So I try to go back to like when Bandler and Grinder were teaching this, they tell you, here's the technique, here's why it should work. So if it's not working, this is what you could tweak, right? And so that's that. And this is like with magic words, NLP, one of the people they studied was a guy named Milton Erickson, master hypnotist, and could do this stuff. And people get lost in, it's all about a story. Well, if you really study it, no, he used certain words at certain times. And there's certain words that light up your neurology, right? Like naturally, easily, and effortlessly, because we like things natural, easy, and effortless. So, Phil, I know that naturally you want to learn the secrets of NLP. And you will easily discover that the secrets are easier than what you think they are if you learn the correct words in the proper format. So that was like some magic words. The preface was naturally, we like it natural and easy because we're humans, we're lazy. And then usually if you add in this thing called, like, I call them discovery words. If I say naturally, as you discover, whatever I say that, or as you become aware of, or as you notice, your brain, I'm not talking psychologically, your brain looks for that. So naturally, you've had the experience of, like, say I want a Tesla, suddenly you'll see a Tesla everywhere. The day before you didn't look for it. So your brain is constantly doing this. So that's what these magic words are, and they're easy to drop into your language if you're aware of them, because as you move toward your goal, you begin to find you can leave the problems behind you.
So it's sort of like we're genetically, we crave fat, sugar, and salt. And with our modern diets, we get that in abundance, and that's why we have obesity and stuff. So what we're talking about with these magic words, it's sort of like the fat, sugar, and salt, but in a verbal form. Your brain naturally seeks those types of ideas, and that's really what you're presenting.
Yeah, it's guiding the person you're talking to. All communication is, I don't want to say manipulation, but you're trying to guide them in certain directions. Yeah. And this will, like, hey, notice this, because naturally there's a lot of NLP trainers out there, but you'll easily discover that if you want good training, you want the basic level.
Right.
Bingo!
Awesome. That's terrific. So let's move on here to the next question I have. Dr. John, you had told me, we've been talking offline a little bit, and you had told me that you do some business coaching. And what makes yours different, and who are some of your partners?
No, that's a great question. My partners was I worked for almost a decade with Anthony Robbins, the late Chet Holmes, Jay Abraham, Gary Vee, all of the Tony Robbins people for 10 years. So when I first went in there, I'm telling you, man, I thought I was great. I still thought I was great. I thought I was really great. But working with them, in order for us to get leads, we had to know the system. So we'd do quizzes and presentations and studying for this stuff. So by the time that I was done, man, business coaching was easy. I was doubling and tripling people's business in less than a year. Why? Because the first thing you have to do is psychology. But the second thing about it, you have to have strategy. And you have to, then you need to optimize. When you can do those things, this has become much more easier, right? Then when I implemented the business stuff with NLP, it took it to a completely different level now. So that's why I said it. Pardon me?
Oh, I was just going to say, and that was going to kind of be my follow-up here with the business coaching, with the NLP training that Dr. Will was talking about. I can see how they would sort of dovetail together.
Absolutely. Because in business, you have to, here it goes. If you don't gain rapport, if people don't like you, they're not going to do business with you. Back in the old days, they were talking about objections and this crazy stuff. And today, if you don't like a person, you're not doing business with them. If you can't find their needs and what their needs are, right? You won't do business with them, right? But if you understand NLP, how to enter a person's world, how to connect with them in such a way, how to close the deal, life become much more easier.
Yeah,
and for me, working with all these greats, and I consider Dr. Will to be the great as well. But all these greats to mold you. I'm not sure if you heard of Chet Holmes. Chet Holmes was a genius when it came to business. Jay Abraham, still a genius when it comes to business, right? These guys was mentoring me for a decade. So I'm completely lucky and blessed.
And you get to take a little bit of each one of those and kind of mold it into your program and how you would present things. So it's kind of an amalgamation, and you're getting the best of all worlds there.
Here's my theory, man. Why reinvent the wheel? There's stuff working. Now, here it goes. Now, I give them credit. So, guys, this came from Jay Abraham. These are 3 ways to grow business from Jay Abraham. I give everybody credit. But why would I reinvent the wheel? It's already done.
Yeah.
Here it goes. My job is to make it better, because in NLP, we model and we make it better.
And one thing that I've discovered too, and it always kind of fascinated me, and Dr. Will, maybe you could speak to this and kind of illuminate why this is, but I found that when I do sales closing and stuff and I talk to prospects, one of the things that seems to work really well for me, when I hear the prospects' pain points and stuff, if I'm able to repeat it back to them and regurgitate it in a way that's very similar to what they say, but kind of gives them the impression that I understand their problem, maybe even better than they do, they automatically assume that I have the solution. And you can understand a problem, but not necessarily know how to fix it, but for some reason, it just seems to be the way we're wired, right? If somebody explains a problem to you that you have better than the way you do, you automatically assume that they know how to solve it. Is there psychology behind that?
Yeah, because their brain is searching for an answer, and so like whatever the problem is, when they hear someone else articulate it, 2 things happen. A, it's a mirror of what's going on in their heads, right? So and they find out they're not alone. They're not the only one that are. Their business has gone down in the new environment post-COVID, whatever's going on, right? And so that's like John said, that's part of know, like, and trust, which has been around forever. But it's like, hey, and the interesting thing, if you can articulate it in a way that your client does, which the easiest thing to do is do like Milton Erickson, actually listen to what they're saying and feed it back to them. Maybe tweak it a little bit in your words, but feedback what they're saying, right? Don't use your criteria. That's where like sales scripts fall apart, right? They may not be worried about this. They're worried about that. And, it does, they're going to assume you have the answer.
Right. Yeah.
And then you lead them down the path, and it opens up their neurology. The way I always say, lights up their neurology, because
Okay.
now they found a kindred spirit that maybe can help them get to, more
that's
business, whatever the thing
and
we're
that's
working on.
exactly it. They start to see you as a fellow traveler and somebody that's on their team, somebody that's part of their tribe that can help them get to where they're going, a guide, a helpful guide, if you will. So, and that kind of leads me into one of the things that we had talked about earlier too, with NLP and stuff. We can increase close rates by as much as 30% over what you're already doing. Can you guys elaborate on that a little bit?
Can I tackle that first, Doc?
Yeah. Well, one thing that can happen is it pulls you out of, you get into, like I said, about driving the car. It's why I started that way, right? You get locked into patterns. It's what makes life easy. We want to do that. So if you're going to start learning this stuff and you're stuck at whatever your close rate is, well, it's working for you to this level. One of my favorite sayings is, what got you here may not get you there, right? What'll get you into college football may not get you into pro football, right?
Yep.
And so it's that.
Different.
So you have to back up, and we call it and it's been around for a long time. I've heard it called different things. It does come from NLP, which is out of the unconscious behavior of stuff you could do, and has to put you into consciously learning new things. Like when I got my new car, I had to, it took me a while to relearn, like, nope, the gear shifts back down here. It's not up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a little more flexible because my wife's truck still's up here, so it makes me go back and forth. But so that alone, when it makes you more conscious of what you're doing, it will help you get better rapport, keep you out of patterns that is stopping you from getting to the next level. Okay. That would be my first take on it. And Dr. John can go.
My take is on it, right? So I used to work, as I said, I worked for Tony Robbins and them, right? And when I first started, my closing rate was decent, 30, 40%. Then it got up to 69%. So everybody I spoke to on the phone, I closed by 69%. And here's the reason why. I followed to the T Dr. Will program of NLP. How to close deals, the whole 9 yards. We're talking about everything. My sales increased. I trained everybody under me in Tony Robbins' organization, the top 10, to make between $20,000 to $80,000 per month, every month, by doing the same thing. We were business coaches, so we had retainers. My retainers average was between $7,500 and $15,000 per month. We split half. Chet get half, we get half, right? But I was doing this stuff because of what I learned. And I taught everybody this stuff, right? That's why I'm so passionate about it, because I know that everybody who I was working with, somebody was closing 2 out of 10. I start working with them, and they start closing 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. Easy and effortlessly, because if they know how to do it, if they know the system, if they know the strategies, and if we can figure out what's going on, it's easy. If we ask them better questions, use their words back to them, figure out what's going on, and here goes. The bigger deals take a little bit longer. The ones for $35,000 per month, the bigger ones, they take about 3 or 4 months because you have to go back and forth.
Sure.
Closing your deals for $35,000 per month and split is getting half of that was not and most of those deals will last for 6 months to a year. The business coaching contracts would last for about maybe between 2 to 4 years on the average. My last year working with them, I closed 100% of the people on the phone. Face to face, I closed 100% easy because watched the body language, X, Y, and Z, figured out what's going on, looked at the language patterns, I looked at the buying strategy. Everything was taught in this program. So I know for sure. And I was taking people that was not that great in communication and sales, still closing 5 and 6 people. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can tell you in this day and age, that's really valuable because as great as social media is, and it allows us to connect across the country and have these types of events, it also limits to some degree people's ability to communicate with each other on a human level. So absolutely, having access to training like this can kind of, it can be a refresher for people of my generation, and it could be something very useful for younger generation, Gen Z and all that. And, so that's very important too. Just the communication and human aspect of it.
Though I'm happy you mentioned that. As I said, I spent 36 years working with adolescents and teens. And the cool thing about it is I teach them the exact same thing I teach salespeople. You got to gain rapport. You got to enter their world. You need to figure out what's going on. And then when you can do this, your life becomes much more easier. Now, if you take on sales, your life's going to be really easy because, as you guys know, salespeople get paid the highest amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you have the right vehicle.
Right. Yeah, and that's key. Yeah, you can't get where you're going. You're absolutely right there. So, with this, you're closing 30% more. Is there a way, if you use this properly, that you can actually double your revenue and profit?
Oh, absolutely, man. Now think about this, man. If you're only closing 20%, now you're closing 30%, 40% more, your income is doubling, is almost tripling. It's easy. But then when you can do this, man, but then when you can do this, here's a cool thing about it, right? It's not just you. Now, man, your wife is happier, or else your husband's happier. Your kids are happy. You take vacations and trips, right? When we work with people, yeah, we work with them, but we really work with their families because now we're changing their whole family lives with this.
You're taking a lot of that. You're helping the communication, not just from sales closer to prospect. It's their entire life. It's how they deal with their coworkers, how they deal with their superiors, how they deal with their spouses and their children. And when people are happier, they're more productive. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Absolutely right. I believe when we go through this training, and I tell everybody this up front, this is for personal and professional. It helps with both. And imagine if you're having some hard times communicating with your kids, as well as with your wife or your spouse. Now you take this program and learn how to communicate with them, enter their world, connect with them in a whole different way, and you're making money. Come on, man! It don't get better than this.
No, you're right, and it's so one thing that I've sort of discovered. A lot of people that tend to lash out. It's usually not that they're mad at you in that particular moment. You just happen to be the straw that broke the camel's back. They got a lot of stuff going on in the background that you haven't seen, and maybe it's because they haven't been able to articulate it and come to terms with it themselves. And life is just generally easier when you're happy, when you're able to communicate your needs and wants. And so it can go well beyond business. It can go into your personal life. And people tend to gravitate to people who make them feel good. And if you can communicate with them, people are going to want to be around you. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. BINGO, bingo.
Okay. So I was just laughing because I just heard that song about 10 minutes before we came in. I got a 2-year-old and she was watching Miss Rachel, and that song was playing right before we came in here. So, so how many industries have you worked with in your business career?
I worked with over 150.
Oh,
and
wow.
Here's the cool thing about working with 150, right? A lot of people, they do the same thing in different industries. My job is to switch it off in front, to figure out what's one industry doing, put it to another people. It's industry because you don't want to look the same way and be the same way as everybody else. So I like to work with other people. As industries match and mirror, switch here, switch there, switch that, switch this, see what's working, and be different from everybody else that you're doing business with. But I see a lot of people, for example, I work with doctors, right? And they do the same marketing over and over and over again. But they're getting the same results. Let's switch it, man. Let's throw some overhead stuff here and do this right there. Well, John, it's working great. Of course it is. Because no one's doing this inside your field. So 150 industries was fun and it was great. I just love learning. I love expanding even more.
So how transferable is this from one industry to another? Very
a lot.
Yeah.
Well, one of the mistakes generally, if I pull back, right, and I can relate this to psychology and other worlds too. One of the mistakes is in the sales, marketing, and management world is you have to be in the industry to teach this. Like I went to help somebody; they were doing a car dealership, and their first question was from the salesman, "Well, how long you been selling cars?" Well, then why should I listen to you?
Right.
Right. Well, if what you were doing was working, your boss wouldn't be threatening to fire you, and you wouldn't be looking for new sales trainers to come in. It's like, and it's
Yeah.
like, and so it got him to pull back and just look at like, hey, what works in this, like John just said, what works in this industry, you might have to tweak it, but it'll work. Right.
Right.
And like, I've worked a lot with car guys, in real estate and insurance besides medical and that. And it's the same thing, they want to get stuck into this thing. And I always point out the breakthroughs happen by people that look at it differently. Right? That's the ones that look at this like the social media marketing when companies that were, the old brick and mortar companies were making fun of it. Those that grasp it, yes, I speak for a living, those that grasp it, they're the ones that are like kind of dominating the market. It's why the small, it's also why I'll close the turnover, John. The smaller players can adapt quicker because you're not going through 6 levels of bureaucracy.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Very nice. So, John, Doctor, do you have anything that you would like to expand on that, or?
No, Dr. H did a great job.
Okay.
I mean, listen to me. Hey, sometimes I'm impressed. Today, I'm impressed with him. He did a great job.
Nice. So, just to drop some extra value here for everybody that tuned in, what are some tips? What can we all start utilizing today if we wanted to start incorporating this into our process? What's something that we can walk away with and put into our, and since we can go into the personal life as well as business, what's something that would play on both sides of that fence?
Dr. H, I'll go with you first. Since you started, maybe you might as well go for it.
Okay. Well, there's no saying that, you attract not what you want, but who you are, right? So you got to kind of be a little bit different if you're going to, one of my unofficial mentors is Dan Sullivan, the 10X strategic coach guy. And he talks about, that you got to be the person. I mean, we've heard that, but then nobody shows you how to do it.
Your outside world's a reflection of your inside world.
Yeah, and they'll say that sounds great, but then Bob Proctor said that, and all these and people I respect, but they don't show you how to do it.
Right.
It's the old Zig Ziglar: get a checkup from the neck up, and then move on to the next topic, right? But one of the ways is to do what when you're looking at where you want to go. First of all, where you are right now, fine. This is it, right? Don't judge yourself by an expert. So when you're first getting into the field, and I can use a sports analogy if that's okay. A rookie quarterback, right? All fans are the worst, right? Because they don't know shit. They don't play and they don't coach. But they'll say, well, he's not playing like Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. Well, he's got 4 games under his belt, right? That's a gap.
Sure.
That's a gap. If you measure yourself by the gap, you'll always fail.
Makes sense.
Absolutely, because that's a big leap. But if you judge yourself by your gains, like, well, I'm better, like John said. When I first started this, I would close, when I started my big brick and mortar business at the time, I would close 30, 40%. Then by the end, I got very selective on who I'd even screen at the end. I didn't want everybody. That's the other thing that begins to happen when you get good at this. It's like, I don't need to take this client just for the money. Because trust me, I've done this. I'll testify. Yes, I've had to do this in the past. But when things are rock, it's like, I don't want to work with this person. Right? They're not ready. They need too much, whatever it happens to be. But if you judge yourself like, well, I'm doing better than I was before, that sets that brain up that now you can make incremental gains.
So right? like the Japanese method of Kaizen, like improve 1% each day.
Yeah. And so that would be my thing, is just like where you are, just accept that. And then you can look at the experts. But if you're going to look at an expert, and I always think, I tell people Tony Robbins, because people come to me about being a better public speaker or managers that have to start doing presentations. Because I'm an actor, professional actor. I've been doing that for a long time. So I bring that in. I'm like, well, don't judge Tony by where he is today. Go back and look at those old videos, when he still had the acne and he was wearing the ill-fitting suits and all this other stuff, right? You can't get away with what Tony gets away with today. Walk into a big business meeting with shorts and a dirty t-shirt. And just, you're not Tony freaking Robbins,
Right. You
You're whoever, right?
Yeah.
So go back and then you see the trajectory of growth. Same with like sports. A lot of people can relate to sports, whether they're a fan or not. You watch these athletes grow.
So essentially find somebody that you want to emulate and then look back at their early career progress and kind of try to figure out where you are on that timeline and compare yourself to that instead of where they are here.
Right. Yeah, I had to do that when I started learning film acting, which is I always did stage. I've done over 100 stage plays, right?
Okay.
And it's a different art. And this relates to what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Same technique, your character, your lines, all that, but it's two different things you have to adjust to. Right. So when I was trying to learn how to film act, I took classes, and that teacher was smart enough to say, don't go comparing yourself to people that's been doing this stuff for 25 or 30 years. Mm-hmm. You're starting here, and then, you watch your incremental progress. And the painful thing about film acting is there's a record.
So Dr. H, then for your strategy, is that that's the same thing when they do in basketball, when they compare someone to a Michael Jordan, they compare him to the greatest guy on the earth of playing basketball. People are saying, wait a minute, how was he his rookie year? His rookie year, he's crazy. Anyway, but how was he his rookie year? Not when he won 20 championships in a row.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Good point.
Yeah. Terrific. That was awesome. And Dr. Oda, do you have anything to add to that?
Absolutely. So I would add a business tip, right? So I told you I've been in business for 27 years, right? And what we have is these things called profit stations, right? A profit station is to grow your business. And now people, how Dr. X talked, how Dr. Will talked about 10Xing. We say the same thing about a profit station. If you use the right profit station, you can 10X your business. We have 40 different profit stations. For most businesses, they can use about 12, right? So each month when I have my clients, I teach them a profit station. Let me explain to you what a profit station is. A profit station is something that you can get revenue without spending that much money on, but it can still give you 10%, 20%, 30%, even 40%. So I had a doctor that I used to work with. He had 3 officers, dentist guy. And I said, hey, doc, do you ask for referrals? He said, yeah, we are all the time. I said, really? So I called up one office. I said, hey, hey guys, this is Coach. Just trying to see, you won't get in trouble. How many times when somebody leaves, I bet you ask for his referrals. Oh, Coach, man, we're so busy. I hope we don't get in trouble. About 2 times. I said, all right, go down 2 times. No big deal. And the next office was like 3, and the next was 3, right? We added up for 2 years. This doctor missed off on $2.5 million.
Right.
And the reason why was he did not systemize a referral program. Imagine, look at Starbucks, look at McDonald's, it's systemized, right?
Mm-hmm.
An 18-year-old kid can run it. Why? It's systemized. Imagine if your business was now systemized and you had 10 different ways of getting business, as well as doing the NLP and everything else. Now your business is growing. Now as you have that foundation, now it's going to grow to something exponentially, right? What most people do, they say, John, I'm scared to ask for referrals. Wow, you're scared to ask for referrals, really? I said, how about this? Let me come up with a different strategy for you to get referrals. So my tip is to focus on systemizing a referral program. Look for people that you have. Now think about it. Just say you have 20 clients, and you never ask for a referral. You ask for 20 people, you get 2 referrals. Guess what happened? Your company just growing right now. But most people, what I consider myself when I do my business is coaching, I'm not the architecture. I'm the civil engineer. I look at the foundation, the pipes, the nasty sewer stuff. But it's going to be a strong foundation to grow your business. So my biggest thing all about it is focus on profit driver number 8 of referral program.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because you can incentivize that, and it's almost I don't want to say free advertising, because there's, you're usually giving some type of a discount or something like that, but it's easy advertising, right? You don't have to put any work into it. You just have to do what you promised that what you promised that you're going to do, and then your satisfied client goes out and spreads it for you, word of mouth, which is some of the best you can get.
But you know what? But I'm gonna go on that. A lot of people only use that way of getting business, and what we call it when Jay was doing it is that that's called a diving board approach. If you only have one way only to bring in business, when that way dry up, then how do you actually explode your business now? Now you're trying to push money here and push money there on ads here, ads there, which again though is not systemized again. It's not strategized. That's why when people focus on only the profit stations and systemize their business always explodes.
And I'm just gonna add to that too. When you get into those situations, if you have one line in the water, like what you were talking about there, and that does dry up, right? You tend to get desperate, and when you get desperate, you make poor decisions. So the best thing to do is to make sure that you, like you're saying, have something systemized, and probably have at least 5 different lines in the water. So if one's not hitting, you're still hitting somewhere else, so you can make adjustments to the one that's not performing.
Absolutely.
So how can we, if people want more information from you and on your program and stuff like that, first of all, real quick, just tell us a little bit about just a 30,000-foot overview. The I know you have 2 different offers for your program, so just tell us a little bit about that, and then also how they can get a hold of you if they want more information or they'd like to speak with you about purchasing it.
Not a problem. So we have a program that's for 3 months, and for 3 months, it's they get an NLP. I'd say it's really a phenomenal program. It's a great program. It hits on every aspect of NLP. And then they get, I think, 1 coaching session. Then we have a 12-month one where we get a certification in business NLP. They also get the 12-week course that we actually have done as well. They get 6 sessions of one-on-one. We're also implementing a deep dive once every quarter to figure out where they're at and everything else. We're also doing every quarter they will come to a live seminar. It can be in California where I'm at Irvine, or it can be also with Dr. H, and we're going to go back and forth every quarter. And these programs is built to grow your business exponentially. Not only you get profit stations, and you'll also get NLP for sales. And for the 12-month course, you'll get certified in NLP. The traditional model, not the 5-generation model. That's a good example, Doc. Not the 5 generations. You're going to get it from the root of how to actually get it done and how to actually grow your business. How to get a hold of me, it's easy. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, same name, Dr. John Oda. Instagram, Dr. John Oda. Everything is Dr. John Oda, right? So you can get us on that one. But yeah, and that's how you can actually get us a hold of us. You can also email me at john@drjohnoda.net, or phone number is 833-375-6466. So we have different ways but let me tell you, man, the programs are freaking amazing. I have to tell you, it's amazing. Working with Dr. H, no. So let me give you an overview. I've been training with Dr. H literally for the past 20 years, about once, twice, 3 times a month. He have a program every Wednesday. Sometimes I come on there, but oh my God, man, the information that he teaches is mind-boggling. It's amazing stuff, right? So and Dr. H is always doing programs and trainings and everything else about what he does, and he does an amazing job. That's why I decided to actually still be friends with him for the last 27 years and stuff, because he's a smart young man. So anyway, but otherwise than that, no. But the program's amazing. I love all the programs. It's really amazing. And we and then we guarantee on the 12-month one that we'll actually increase your closing rate by 30%, or else double your business.
Wow. That's a bold claim, and that's really cool. So that about wraps it up. Dr. Will, do you have anything to add to this before we go, or?
No, except that I think one of the things that lights me up is teaching people how their brain works. And you see that like light comes on, that it's not as complicated as people make it out to be. Because you simplify for success, you complicate for profit. So a lot of the people make it very complicated because rather than simple, direct, and what works. And
Right.
that's what I love doing.
Very cool. Well, thank you for joining me today, guys. I appreciate it. This has been very fun and very informative, and look forward to talking with you both again.
All right, man. Thank you guys so much, man. Appreciate everybody.
Thank you, guys. Take care.